Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Alliance, your home on the Geek Ultimate Alliance podcast network for any and all things Star Wars. I'm your host, as always, Katie, and joining me, like he has for the past month, Zach. Welcome back.
Hello, happy to be here.
How's your day been?
It's been a really good day, actually. It went by very quickly. It's been a little tiring, but that's not too bad.
Yeah, I can understand that. Like I said before, like quickly before I launched the show live, you know, completely overslept my alarm this morning, missed watching Andor early this morning, but it was healthy for me because I stayed off Twitter
Yeah,
all day. Very healthy for me. I need to do that more often.
yeah. The same. Maybe that's what we should just both start doing is just avoiding spoilers and get a Twitter break in the process. I
Oh,
didn't watch Andor early either. I only watched it about an hour ago. Is when I finished. Gave me just enough time to go take a shower and everything. I really enjoyed this episode. I'm very excited to talk about it.
well, yes. And lo and behold, we have one thing to talk about that is not Andor related, but I think it'll be very quick because I don't have a lot to say on it. I did just want to bring attention to it, I guess is the best way to put it. But before we get into all of that, of course, sorry, excuse me as I organize my monitors over here. Y'all, I'm reading a book. It's called Convergence. It comes out November 22nd, and I cannot put it down, and it's really hard for me to do this show right now and not just want to go read this book. But I'm here. That's all that
That,
matters.
that shows your level of commitment to the fans.
Yes, yes, which is why you should be tuned in right now. I see we have one person in the
Exactly.
chat. Hello, one person in the chat. I'm gonna be lazy and not even tweet because I'm just like, let's get it done. Just kidding. I'll go tweet
No,
now.
I was like, I feel you on that one. Heck yeah.
All right, y'all. So, before we get into the oh shit. Sorry. I'll have to look at that later. Um, so like I said, Star Wars Alliance is a part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance podcast network. We have 8 shows, 7 days a week. And we'd love to have you for all 8, but if you're here for only a couple, that's great too. Um, there are all the shows and everything are in the description box below for you to check out. Um, description box below. Sorry, I just saw somebody's message to me that I apparently should have read earlier. Threw me a little off guard. It was not great news. But so, anyways, okay. So all the shows in the description box below for you to go check out, whether you're on YouTube or if you're on a podcatcher of your choice. There are 3 ways to support us as a show and podcast as a whole. The first way is via Patreon, where we have 2 tiers. The $1 tier helps keep the Kyber crystals charged around here, and the $5 tier gets y'all ad-free episodes, exclusive episodes, and any early episodes we may drop. That $5 tier right now will also get you exclusive access to our call-in show, which is on October 30th. So if you're a patron of our $5 tier, you can come join the show for us to all talk about. That is October 30th at 4 p.m. Eastern. So just as a heads up for anyone who's interested, um, we do have one more House of the Dragon episode that will be next week for Matt and I. Um, and so I again appreciate everyone who's tuned into that show because it's been a blast and I've loved making Matt do podcasting with me. So uh, the second way to support us is by listening to the ads on this podcast. Yes, we are an ad-supported show, ad-supported network. I will give you a warning before those ads are to occur, but just so you know now, we don't get to choose who the ads are from, nor how many times you hear the same ad in the same episode, nor how loud they are. So that warnings just help you prepare those volume levels. Again, we appreciate you listening to the ads. They help support the show. Keep the lights on around here because goodness knows I need it. I need better lighting. Anyways, the final way to support us is by taking 30 seconds and rating and or reviewing us on your favorite podcatcher of choice. Those reviews help put us into the feeds of other listeners who may not be following us on social media. Got it that time. Yes. I think that about covers it. Um, we will be talking about spoilers for Andor episode 7 entitled The Announcement. So we'll do a small non-spoiler section as we get started. But obviously go watch the episode if you're concerned about spoilers and then come back because it's a place to be.
And it's a
So
good episode.
it is. It really is. Phenomenal.
This is the
So
first episode that I can say without spoiling anything. This is the first episode that really made me feel like super emotional at one point.
it did.
Like,
And yeah, super
yeah.
emotional. Um, so with that, I'm gonna write down the time for Clay so we can timestamp it for everybody in the description box below.
I'm proud of you for
5:55.
remembering this week.
Thanks. I'm trying.
I'm gonna keep
um,
giving you positive reinforcement, so maybe we'll remember
that's what
more.
I need in my life, okay? That's what I need. All right. So, the little bit of news we have is an article in I believe this is San Francisco Gate, which they have on their website. It's the Bay Area's best free local newsletter. Um, so this is here, and it's the article is about an illustrator. Her name is Mary Lee Hire, and she currently lives in California. And in 1981, she was 39 years old. So I'll let you imagine her age now, but I'm not going to say it because women don't like that. And I know she's probably not listening, but I did just want to call this out because we do want to make sure Lucasfilm is giving credit, and especially Disney because Disney's had problems with this.
Yes.
Uh, so she actually did a lot of illustrations uh for Princess Leia's looks with plural um in Return of the Jedi. So she has a lot of the article sorry, like still distracted. Sorry.
No, I
Um
completely get it.
so the article has a lot of kind of pictures with her like designs with like Leia with like a slave collar on, like early iterations of bikini Leia and everything. I was trying to see. And there's like one where she has like pointy buns, but then like look still has like the bikini look. It's kind of like a fighter almost, but
Yeah,
it
it kind
kind
of
of
gave me
reminds
like
you.
post-apocalyptic vibes, honestly.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds you of like one of those Clone War episodes.
That's a very good, yeah. That's honestly more so than what I said. I think that's a very like it has that feel to it, like almost like the Zygerians. Like I don't know how to
Yeah,
pronounce that.
that's what I was thinking of was the Zygerians. Um, so she was not credited in the first Return of the Jedi. And then she kind of called it out, and they were like, "Oh, well, we'll give you credit." And so in the next publishing, she was given credit, but her designs have been used in several like art pieces, but also like documentaries and everything. So she's just trying to make sure people get their get their credit because as we well know, Lucasfilm, not necessarily Lucasfilm, but Disney in general has not been good at paying creatives for their past work for companies that they've bought. So people from like 20th Century Fox are having trouble getting their work paid for. Um, Alan Dean Foster, who wrote Splinter of the Mind's Eye as well as the Force Awakens novelizations, has been having trouble getting his money for like sales of the books and everything. So she was basically hired under a contractor role because somebody else had kind of like come up with the design for what they wanted for Princess Leia, but he couldn't articulate it or draw it out for Lucas to see. So she basically came in and did the illustrations, and she also did the artwork for the Yoda patch that was on all of the film crews jackets and everything, the souvenir stuff. And she still has the patch. So,
That's really cool.
just
I got to read the article, but I didn't get to read it completely. I was reading about the like the art she did for the Leia costume. I didn't see the Yoda patch though. I thought that was pretty cool.
mhm. And yeah, the patch was super cool. The costume, obviously, super great. But one of her original drawings, as of recently, actually appears on a variant cover of Star Wars Age of Republic, Princess Leia #1, and she had no idea it was being used. She's not featured as the artist who created the cover, um, and she's like, it doesn't really surprise me anymore. It's more like seeing an old friend now. Like, okay,
Yeah,
I recognize my artwork, but I can't really get anything to happen. Um,
that's so
so
rough.
it is, and especially considering, like, she's just an illustrator. Lucasfilm did offer her a job in the 1980s, but this was the last movie for the original trilogy, and, she was
Yeah,
like, "Well, what's the plan after this?" And they were like, "Well, George Lucas is gonna take a little bit of a break and come back to it at some point," and obviously no one knew when he was gonna come back to it, so she was like, "Now stick with steady work and, like, things I can trust."
yeah.
Because
You can't really wait
she
around
was
for 20 years.
yeah, and at that point, she being a woman, she was the only woman who was in, like, a pitch room with George
Mhm.
Lucas at one point, and people were like, "Hey, can you go grab coffee or something?"
Yeah, I was reading that. Like they said the first time that she met the director of Return of the Jedi, he asked her to get coffee for him, and it's like Jesus.
Yeah, and, like, I get it, it's the '80s, but also, like, just because it was the '80s doesn't mean it's excusable. Like, we recognize today, not
Agreed.
acceptable.
Yeah, it was
So
normalized, but that doesn't mean it was good.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I did like her story about how she was like, "Well, I was trying to meet Harrison Ford though." Like I thought
yeah,
that I was like, "Okay, lady, I see what you're going for." That was pretty great. But yeah,
yeah.
Disney has been traditionally not great with, providing credit where credit is due when it comes to these things. I mean, I know that I don't remember exactly who it was, but I remember recently, like even somebody that had written for Disney, like since Disney had taken over, was having trouble. I think it was the creator of Cobb Vanth, I believe, was having trouble with actually getting like credited and any sort of acknowledgement or anything like that. I thought that was interesting.
Well, I think and granted, this is happening to a lot of other authors other than just, Chuck is it Chuck? Yes, Chuck Wendig is
Yes.
the creator of Cobb Vanth. And obviously it was kind of a different time, but he was actually fired from Star Wars stuff because
Yeah.
he been working on comics and stuff after the Aftermath trilogy, and I believe they were pulling him in for another Star Wars book, and then all of the right-sided politician people came up and
Yeah.
were like, "He's insulting these people," and I'm gonna be honest, even as somebody who leans middle left is kind of like, I could have done without that language. Just
Gotcha. I
for
see. I, di-
me.
I didn't see that whole situation. I just remember like people talking about how like because I remember that got brought up or like I think that was like the initial talking point, and then a lot of other like examples were being brought up. And I remember like Alan Dean Foster was a big one that they were talking about when that was going around was that like it's it's just not it's something they've traditionally had issues with, and it's something that they definitely need to work on and put focus into.
Yeah. So Disney slash Lucasfilm needs to do a better job at crediting the people who create their things in general. But it's not just a Lucasfilm problem,
No.
it's a Disney problem.
Yeah,
Um,
it's definitely not. It's not a Lucasfilm specific problem. And honestly, even saying that it's just a Disney problem, that I mean, it's a wider Hollywood problem if we're being honest. But Disney specifically has very, you know, they tend to have a record, and when you get that big, you need to be making sure. Like when I'm of the opinion that when you're a big company that can afford to, take care of the people that got you there, you should. And I, tr- people tend to throw around. I know on Twitter at least the certain groups like to use the word Disney shill, but
Yep.
as much as I love the stories, like I'm very sold on Star Wars and the stories and all that. Human lives and real people take first priority, and I'll be the first person to jump on that.
100%. And like that's what I just messaged my friend who had sent me something. So people people matter
Yes.
more than the creatives behind it. And what you do with that is your business and yours alone. But I just all hope that we can go, okay, if an artist created something, and I know this has been a problem with like Marvel Comics, Star Wars, and Marvel in general, but like using other people's art, it needs to be credited and it needs to be done properly. Because at the end of the day, everyone's got a creative bone in their body, and there's a reason that creatives for IPs aren't allowed to read fan fiction or aren't really allowed to look at other people's art and stuff just to make sure that they're not reutilizing things.
I mean, I've read
So,
that like they can't even like read people's Twitter. Like somebody could, if you pitch a story to somebody on Twitter that like works for Lucasfilm, like they instantly have to just like hide it. They can't look at it. It's just a whole
yeah.
thing. So yeah.
All right, I forgot to tweet too, so now I'm tweeting.
Well,
Come join
while
us.
you're tweeting, I'll fill the space so I can show you actually this new nerdy thing that I got in an attempt to try and get more reading done. So I got these glasses. I don't know if you've ever seen these before.
Oh, I've seen those. Have you
Okay.
used them yet? What do you think?
They just came in today. I tested them out today on my lunch break a little bit. Like I laid down on my bed and I was watching TV while laying completely flat back. I think they're great. It's very clear. I mean, it kind of limits your like peripherals, obviously, but what you're looking at, there's not really any size issue as far as like the distance of the mirror, and it's very
Yeah.
clear. So I can, for people who don't know what these are, so these are glasses that you put on and they have like mirrors in them that reflect, so you can like read things at an angle. You don't have to put things right directly in front of your face. So I can be laying like flat back in bed and reading a book that's sitting on my chest now. So like, and so I put these on and like down here, I feel a little silly, but hold on. Yes, I've got a book, so I can like literally just be looking forward and be reading this book like this. It's really great. So this is,
I want though I'm so tempted for those now. You got ones that can go over your glasses?
yep, $14. Not that bad.
$14.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
called lazy readers. And you know what?
Hey,
I'll take that title. But
exactly. Whatever I can do to read more things.
yes, hey, my neck is gonna thank me for it. I'm gonna do the reading whether or not I have them, so I might as well save my neck.
Yes, I've got like an occipital migraine right here tonight, and I'm like, I want to finish this book, but like also like my neck's gonna hurt.
If I
Ah.
could reach through the screen, I would let you borrow these things for the night. I know how that feels.
So, all right, the tweet has been made. So I'm gonna write this down, and we're gonna go ahead and jump to Andor episode 7 at 1850. So, with that, um, uh, where should we start? I guess. So we have Cassian and doing things, and then we have Coruscant.
Yes. It started with Coruscant, did it not? I'm trying.
Let's look at my Collider recap by Maggie. Shout out to Maggie. Um, yes. So we start out with Cyril
Yes.
eating more
Okay.
of his blue cereal.
Sarah, oh my gosh, he has had such a he's on such a the short end of a stick,
Yep.
for lack of a better term. It's and like it feels completely justified because I mean this guy got people killed, and now he's having to deal with just corporate monotony, and I love it so much. Like I'm surprised by how much I'm loving what's going on with Cyril, considering nothing is really happening with Cyril at all right now. It's really just him increasingly getting to the point where he's like, I hate this. Like, I don't want to be here.
Welcome back, Lewis. I recognize you.
Hi, Lewis. First.
Um, so yes, so Cyril basically he's getting the new job. His mom insults his suit choice, which granted, I am not a brown suit person. I don't think a brown suit looks good on anybody. So, but maybe that's just me. But I agreed with her.
I just thought it was so funny the way she addressed it. She wasn't even just like, "Oh, hey, maybe a gray suit would be a little better." She's just like, "Oh, that's what you're wearing." Like,
Yes, and then
your
insults him because he got it
your
tailored. Like,
your collar's a little high. You look desperate. It's like what? Like what does that even
give me attention.
mean?
All
Oh
I gotta
god.
say though is we have a new meme. This is the Bureau of Standards.
Y-
I don't know what you want from me.
Hi, Garrick.
Hi, Gag.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I still don't. I don't know. Like I still feel Cyril is completely getting everything he deserves. However, I completely understand why he is like his personality is the way it is meeting his mother. And I like
Yep.
that they're giving us that extra time. I was kind of wondering if she would just pop in for that one episode and they'd be like, okay, now you know why he is that way, and then like push him forward. So getting more of her and just those little grating moments. Like every
Yep.
time that she like makes a backhanded comment towards him, I'm like, oh, I see why he got off planet. Like I completely get why he
Yep.
moved him away and he's not visited. Like it makes complete sense.
And like, I just feel bad that he has to kind of stay on Coruscant right now. But I guess if you're kind of outlawed from everyone, because I mean, the head of the bureau is able to pull up like his record and go, oh, so he's like, well, we don't have to worry about that. We'll just erase it, that kind of
Yeah,
thing. So
he,
like,
that's actually something I thought about was him just basically being like, oh, well, I'm gonna try and fix this, and like, all right, well, we'll get rid of it, and it's just like it's literally that easy to get. Like, it shows how little accountability there really is within the Empire. Like, they're just like, whatever, we need you to do this other job. We'll get rid of the the record. That's fine.
yeah,
You were talking about him being stuck on Coruscant. I do have a theory. I mean, it doesn't even feel like a theory at this point because it feels like everybody kind of thinks it. But I feel like oh gosh, why am I blanking on her name? I was literally just thinking it.
Deidre,
Deidre, yes, Deidre. Thank you. Miro. That's what I was trying to think was her last name.
yep,
She I feel like she is coming for him. Like she just got full access, and I kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but she just got full access to whatever record she needs now, and Cyril's in those records. So I think he's gonna be a stop on her Cassian trip that she doesn't even know she's going down. So I'm pretty
I think
excited
so
about that.
too. She's gonna figure out that he's on Coruscant and like go rope him in to try and like hunt stuff down. I want to address this because I almost said this and then was like, no, he's not. So Garrick says he's definitely killing his mom at some point.
Okay,
Um,
I saw that and I started getting
absolutely.
excited. I have one of two ways that I think that's gonna go because and it goes back to what I said I think like 2 weeks ago where I was saying I think Cyril has one of two ways he's gonna go. So I think he's either going to realize like, oh, the company or the empire that I work for is horrible and I need to change, and we'll kind of get like a callous character out of him, or and if that's the case, what I think will happen is I think he'll probably just like tell his mother off, or I think he's going to go down the rabbit hole, go full Imperial, probably join the ISB if him and Deidre get close,
Yeah.
And then, yeah, if that's the case, if he goes full bad guy, I'm on that train. I think he's killing his mother. I think that's on the list.
I don't know if like he'll like actually kill her, but I'm like, oh, okay, she's gonna like we're gonna get like a chokehold or something where
Or
he's
like
gonna
a
be like,
Breaking
shut
Bad
the
where I was thinking like Breaking Bad where he like walks in and she's like choking on something and he just kind of like turns away and doesn't like, you know,
jump
full scumbag, not
100%.
even like perform the task himself. He's just skeevy.
Yes. I don't know, because he's like a rule follower. So I don't think he wants to like actively break laws, but
Yeah,
like going to the point of like shut the fuck up, woman. Like
he's my favorite kind of like lawful bad character, where he's just
yeah,
like but I have to follow the laws, and literally nobody around him is following the laws. And he's like, but we gotta follow the laws, guys. Come on, we gotta follow the laws. And everybody's like, why? It's so much easier to not. And he's just like
Like
stressing out the whole time.
like we talked about, he is totally the kid who would be like, "Oh, teacher, you didn't collect homework."
Yes,
And everybody hates his guts.
he's that kid who's forced to go to recess, and none of the teachers are listening to what he's saying now. So he's just like everybody's being bad, and nobody cares.
Yep,
Uh,
100%. 100%.
yeah.
Um, so he gets through the job interview and the head person who's interviewing him is like, "Well, we have this opening in fuel." And he takes the job because we see him at the very end. And this is where I was like, what the fuck? That's the end of the episode. And he's just sitting there and he's in like an actual suit this time because he's got like a little tie, but
Little
he's like
pie.
looking at things and like scrolling. And then you just see him look up and then it just zooms out and you see all the cubicles. And that's the end of the episode. The
So
end. Bye bye. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
I used to work in a call center where I was in a cubicle. I worked there for years. So that's like my worst nightmare is being like that's some monkey's paw type situation for me where it's like we're going to put you're going to get to live in the Star Wars universe, your favorite fantasy world, but you got to work in a cubicle in a monotonous office environment for the rest of your life. It's like, what? Are you kidding me?
100%. I I got out like somebody on LinkedIn messaged me and was like, "Well, you'd have to come into the office for this job," like proposing, and I was like, "No, I'm fully remote right now. I never want to go back. Thank you very much." Like, no.
You're like, I'm good. I'm hunkered down. Thanks though.
Yep. Scarab Scuttlebutt is popping by to say hi. Hello. Greetings. All right. So which character I guess do we want to hit next? Because I feel like the easiest way to do this right now is to hate characters because it's just ping pong.
I agree. And I want, while we're still on Coruscant, Clea. So
Clea? Oh my gosh, did you see my tweet?
I did see your tweet. Okay, when I first saw her in the trailer, I thought the same thing. So I'm
Okay,
glad we're on
I
the
don't
same page.
I didn't watch all of the Andor trailers. Like I watch one
Oh,
and then
okay.
like if I catch it, if it's like a commercial on TV or something, then I'm like,
Hmm.
"Oh, okay, I'll watch it." But I'm not like actively seeking it out because I want to like enjoy it. So
Yeah,
I had never seen this shot. And y'all, this is her. She is walking, she's in like a red hooded tunic
it's a good
and
shot.
everything. It is. I was like, damn, she looks real sexy right now. Like, and her hair's down and everything. And then I'm like, oh, is this Leia? Like, I know we're getting Bail Organa at some point. So I was like, oh, okay. So she's meeting Leia. This is like teenager Leia who she's meeting and like precursor to Bail because Leia's not well known at this point. Cause like, this is the point. Or no, this is shortly before
Princess of Alderaan.
Princess Leia of Alderaan. So Leia's not fully engrossed in the rebellion
Hmm.
right now, but she could still like be the meeting fairy or whatever. So I was like, that's Leia right there. That's Leia. And then I saw who she was meeting and it was actually Vel. And I was like, oh, well damn. But also like,
That's kind of how Vel
okay.
felt too. Honestly, Vel was like, "Oh, you're not Luthen."
Yes.
No,
Um
yeah, you're definitely right about her looking good in that. I mean, it takes something when you're in an episode with Bix and Mon Mothma, and I walk away thinking about Clea. I'm just saying, like, yeah, she
I
won me over
almost
this
tweeted at
episode.
you with like I was like, oh, I'm gonna tweet this at him, and it was horny on Maine, but Maine was strike through, and it was like podcast. It's like,
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, that's very true.
I can admit it. Okay, you know what? Women look great, and that's all that matters.
I
Anyways,
can agree.
Scarab wants to pop in and just fight for Vel. Vel looked pretty damn good too. Yes, she cleans up very nice.
I honestly like I didn't even know it was her at first because I was in fairness I was looking more at Clea than I was at her. I was just like, oh, she's meeting with somebody, and it's like, oh, that's Vel. Okay, like it caught me off guard.
Yes, because Vel's got like her hair all curled and everything. And obviously you're coming to Coruscant, like you want
Yeah,
to look presentable and like fit in with the crowd. Um
and just not look like
So
the person that just robbed Aldani that
yes.
everybody's looking for. So,
Exactly. Um, no, so Vel was hoping to meet with Luthen, and there is a Luthen Clea Mon Mothma scene before this, but we'll go back to that when we kind of talk
hmm
about Mon Mothma. So Clea basically meets with her and is like, "Well, you're stuck with me. Like Luthen can't be everywhere. Like we have to be able to blend in. He can't get caught." And Vel's not happy, but and apparently, I don't think Vel was supposed to come to Coruscant.
I don't think so either because like Clea seems surprised. Like she seems surprised that she was there, but not that she came. If that makes sense. Like she,
Yeah,
like she's like, yeah, I kind of expected her to do it. I just didn't know for sure that she would.
yeah. So Vel, I kind of was lost in like the whole "oh, she's not Leia" portion, and was trying to like figure out why they would dress her like Leia. So basically, my takeaway from that conversation was Vel has to go kill Cassian now.
Yeah, and that I'm gonna say right now, I'm no longer entertaining the Clea is secretly Cassian's sister theory. I think that one pretty well sold me on the like. I don't think she's gonna try and unless she doesn't know that Cassian's her brother. But I don't think that that's what's going on.
Well, he was still called Cass on
He was, and
his
like
planet,
I know
so
that people change as they grow older, but like I I would recognize my brother after 10 years. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to call her a bad sister or anything like that. I'm not entertaining that theory anymore. So if it does happen, I'll be very surprised.
no, I was trying to think. I was like, would I recognize my siblings? Because I have three, and I was maybe my brother I wouldn't recognize, but my sisters I would recognize.
I have so I'm the youngest of 8. Um yeah. And so I actually have older brothers I was not raised with who I have gone years without seeing before. So like I that's probably why I feel so confident that I would be able to recognize them.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
That'll do it. Um, so they leave off, and Clea is basically like, "I will give you all the data I have on him. Goodbye." And that's the end of that conversation.
Yeah, it was very brief. Like they I I definitely understand it, Vel, because I too was wondering where's Luthen. I was like, why is Luthen not involved in this? But I'm really digging all the political intrigue, like secret conversations and back alleys side of things. Like I'm finding it more intriguing than a lot of the action sequences, which is kind of interesting. Like I'm
I think so too.
perking up a
And
little bit.
this episode reminds and not reminds me, it feels more like Star Wars. We saw more droids, we saw way more aliens.
They heard
Heck,
me
we saw
complaining. They heard me
I
complaining
know.
about aliens.
We saw an alien in an Imperial uniform, which we've never seen before other than Thrawn.
I've heard people mentioning that. So okay, I don't know how canon it technically is, but the game Star Wars Squadrons had
Okay.
Zeltron and Pantoran Imperial pilots.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that's considered canon because they were technically customization options, but it's specifically only the Imperial options. So
Interesting. Okay. That is another question that I have. So,
yeah, I got
Sarah said,
the sense that sorry.
no, you're good.
I was just gonna
Go
say
ahead.
I got the sense that there are technically Imperial aliens, but it's more like the what's that saying? The exception does not prove the rule, or the exception that
Yeah.
proves the rule, or something like that.
Well, like these are all like grunt workers too, typically. So
Yeah,
like you're not
sure.
going to see them in a position of power. TIE pilots, they typically always have their helmets on walking around. We know that from like Alphabet
Yep.
Squadron and everything. Um
Stormtroopers.
Scarif,
We have seen
yeah,
some alien stormtroopers in the comics now that I think about it as well, because there was Sergeant Creel from Scar Squadron and stuff like that. So I think
okay.
you raise a good point. Anytime they can put a helmet over them and forget that they're not humans, probably is about as high as they can climb in the ranks.
Yeah, because the screenshot I saw with this episode, This was actually not like a human passing alien. Like he was fully like probably prosthetic head and everything. So
I'm going back and watching for that then. That's
yeah.
interesting.
Scarif says this is the best written Star Wars. No word is wasted. And best written screened Star Wars. I've read some Star Wars books that are I would like a lot better than this, but again, everybody has a personal preference, and that's
True.
okay. Um, and damn you, Scarif, I had to look.
At least he
He
said
said,
just
"I see a
getting
face in the
in
window."
the same message, not like the next message.
I don't. This is like he said, "I see a face in the window." OMG, just kidding. And I had to look because I am not a horror person. Okay, I hate that kind of shit.
This is why I have blackout curtains, just because I can just close them, and even if there's something out there, I won't know it until it's too late.
I could close my blinds, but then I won't remember to open them for like 3 weeks. So, okay. So do we want to go to Mon Mothma because we kind of talked about Clea, so now we can jump to Mon
Sure.
Mothma.
Yeah.
So Mon Mothma, we see her first at Luthen's shop, and
Hmm.
she walks in with the present in quotes that she had taken for Perrin for his birthday, and it's like Perrin liked it, but I don't think he loved it. And so the driver uh is left outside the building, but they're still being careful, obviously, because you never know who lays bugs in a building or anything. Clearly, Luthen has his own shop bugged because Clea is listening from the back room as Luthen and Mon kind of duel it out in the shop.
Yeah.
Um,
We got one of my favorite lines during this, which was when they were talking about the gifts, but he wasn't just talking about the gifts. He was using that spy
mhm,
double talk, and I love when he hands her that sword or that cudgel, and he says, hold on, I wrote it down where he said, "Yeah, has anyone ever made a weapon that wasn't used?" And I love
yep.
that line specifically in reference to the Rogue One of it all, because
Hmm.
we're building up to Rogue One, and that's the Death Star right there. Like that was the Empire saying, We're just building it as a precaution because when they see the power of it, then they won't want us to attack, so they'll do everything we need." And what he says right there is directly could be directly attributed to that. Has anybody ever built a weapon that they haven't used, and then they do go on to use the Death Star? And that was the first thing I thought of when he said that line. I thought that was really cool.
I didn't think of that one, but I thought of a Legends world-ending weapon. So
Okay. Oh, and
there's
sorry. I was just gonna
it's
say
called the Sun Crusher. So
the Sun
that's all.
Crusher. I'm not familiar with that one.
It's from the Jedi Academy series
Oh,
for
okay,
Luke.
okay,
So
okay.
it's fully Legends. But that's always what I like to think of. So
Gotcha.
anyways, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, so I wonder what's happened in the time between now and the last time on Mothma, maybe not the last time they talked, but one of the first times that her and Luthen talked. Because the first time they talked, she said like, "I'm not sure if I can trust my driver or not." And this time, she just straight up said like, "My driver is an ISB plant." Like she just flat out said it. So it makes me wonder like what's happened in the time between now and then that made her 100% confirm it. Like, did she just have somebody look into it for her, or did something happen and she figured? I'm so curious. It feels like there's more things happening off screen that we're not seeing. And anytime a show introduces the idea that things are happening that we're not seeing, that's when I'm like, what is happening? I need to know everything. Please tell me. So I get
But
really into it.
I have to wonder if with like deleted scenes and like script changes and everything, I have to wonder if this may be the first TV series that we get a novelization for because there's so much that could happen behind the scenes. And you could really even break it out into episodes 1 through 6, episodes 6 through 7, that kind of thing. You could rope in multiple authors. Like
Hmm.
be a very good project to bring a person of color author to Del Rey because I'd want to see the adult version of this. I don't want to see a junior novelization. As much as I have liked the junior novelizations, I want to see Random House Worlds.
Agreed.
Excuse me. Um,
we'll get there. We'll remember eventually.
eventually. I'm sorry, Tom.
We'll,
Um,
we'll write it on the back of our hands one day, and then we'll just remember.
yep. Scarif said, "Oh snap, what a scene!" and talking about
Yes.
Luthen and Mon Mothma talking, and I mean, it really is a scene. It's one of the most powerful scenes we get. Talking about building the rebellion, how
Yeah.
rebellions take credits, that kind of thing. But also, Mon Mothma brings up the point, and because her whole point is, did you do Aldani? Like, were you? And he doesn't openly admit it, but she could tell. I guess they've worked together for quite some time. And once you work with people, you can read people, but also she's a politician and that's her job is
Yeah.
to read people. So, um, so they go through this banter and she's like, well, all the Aldani people, like, people are going to get hurt, people are going to suffer. And he's like, that's the point
Hmm.
because and he this I do remember from the trailer, but it's like the Empire is just has been choking us for so long, we've been forgetful about it. That's not the right line, but like that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what did you think of that?
So that moment right there was exactly when I was like, "That's why he's going to Saw Gerrera." Like that moment, like clarified because I was as soon as he said that, I was like, "That's Saw's line of thinking." Is that
Yep,
every bad thing, every atrocity we have to commit is worth it if it even makes things just a little bit harder for the Empire to breathe. And I think Luthen is a character that's on his road down that same slippery slope that we know Saw goes down. I know a lot of people will defend Saw. I'm not coming out against Saw. I'm not a
yep,
Saw hater by any means. I like Saw's character, but it's without a doubt that he does do some very bad things, especially if you've read the books. The
yep,
movies don't really go into exactly some of the stuff he does. The books really flesh that out, and you realize he does some bad stuff. And I think Luthen is really in danger of going down that route, and I'm kind of worried about what that means for his story. But I do also think that I think the story was bound to get a character like that eventually anyway. You know, we got the Skeen type character where it's a character that's not quite as committed as you thought they were. And I think
mhm,
we're due for the character that's more committed than we're prepared for them to be. I just assumed that was gonna be Saw when he showed up because we know for a fact he's coming. So knowing that Luthen might also be kind of going down that route is very interesting for me, and I'm gonna keep an eye on him now. He's one of my, if not my favorite character in the show. So I'm hesitant for him to go full, you know, I guess extremist would probably be the best word to use. But I mean, like he was telling Mon Mothma, he made some very good points to her when he was telling her, like, I told you we're not going to be able to go back. Once things get started, you can either jump off or you're on it till the end. Like that's it. And
yep,
he wasn't lying. In Mon Mothma is very much the opposite of Saw Gerrera. Saw Gerrera has a tendency to go too far sometimes. Mon Mothma is known to not go far enough. I mean,
yep,
they've talked about that a little bit before. I mean, at Rebels, when we see her in Rebels, that's them pushing her into the actual conflict. Up till that point, she is keeping a foot out of things, and I like how that's kind of translated. I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but in that party with her friend from Chandrilla, I like the idea, and she says it very well. I love that people just see her as an annoyance. They're like, she's
yep.
trying to do things, but like she's too annoying. She's gonna stick within the system. She's too much of a goody goody. She's not gonna break any rules. And I love that line of, if they're too busy seeing me as an annoyance, they're not gonna pay attention to what I'm really doing. I love
I
that.
I jumped so hard over that line in the trailer and it was delivered perfectly. Genevieve O'Reilly
Yes,
killed this episode. She gives
agreed.
a fantastic performance. And heck, even Lewis agrees. Hello, Lewis. Um, and so she just absolutely was immaculate. I know she's been working for years because she was involved in Revenge of the Sith, like we've talked about.
Yeah,
And so she's been developing what she thinks this character feels like in her head for some time. So, and I'm so glad she gets to put it on the screen. Uh,
Absolutely.
like phenomenal. That's
I
all I
I
can say. It's phenomenal.
this whole episode is like, I don't feel like there was a weak performance the entire episode. I feel like every character that they focused on was at the top of their game, or the actor or actress playing them was at the top of their game this episode. I was very like
Absolutely.
into it the whole time, and I kind of jumped ahead already some to it. That party scene,
Yep.
I I need more scenes of that, like where it's just people schmoozing it up. You know, the rich people of the galaxy and Mon Mothma sneaking in. Let me go have a quick conversation with this guy in the garden, and then like, all right, you're gonna join the rebellion, right? Like, I need more of that because, like I was just saying before, Mon Mothma does have a tendency among, at least among the fandom, to be that character that does not, that is maybe afraid to take that last step that needs to be taken.
Mhm.
And I would love to see if it's like, no, she hasn't been afraid, she's been careful, she's been
Yep.
quietly building, and we got to see that first glimpse. Because I, up until now, my I haven't had a problem with how Mon Mothma's been portrayed by any means. I But I felt like she was at Luthen's whims this whole time. Like, up until now, it's really been her just kind of doing what Luthen helps her do. This time, it felt like she was taking charge, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, the party scene, and I know we currently have, I think there's 2 more outfits for Mon Mothma that we've seen for pictures or trailers, that currently haven't been seen on screen. So there are those, but oh, this was just great.
Yeah,
Um, she does a great job, and the guy we thought, was like Valorum,
yeah,
um, that was a huge debate on Twitter. It was like, "Is this guy Chancellor Valorum?" I can't even remember his name right now.
yeah.
Um
I saw like I watched the Star Wars Explained video where he was like addressing it, and he's like, he's not a Valorum, but it'd be cool if he was.
Yeah, so, it
I'm
that
not sure I
scene really
trust
worked
him.
well. I wasn't sure if I trusted him either, but I think that's the guy she fell in love with. You didn't
Oh,
even think about
okay.
that.
No, okay, so that makes complete sense because I 100% thought that her husband was getting jealous of the two of them together. Because there was a scene where they were like, right before he walks over, he looks at him and he just looks suspicious. And then he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
talking about the childhood days." And that dude is very slick. Like, I hope he is the real deal because I like his style where he's like, "Oh, are we that predictable?" Like, just
Yeah.
I was like, "That's so good." Like, I don't know, this was a very good, for people like me who love those nothing's really happening, but if you're paying attention to what people are saying, stuff is happening scenes. I love that kind of stuff, and getting that in Star Wars is really, it's really doing it for me.
I've gotten to the point where I feel like I can't trust anybody with
Yes.
Star Wars stuff, especially after the High Republic stuff with like Path
Oh.
of Deceit and everything. So that's all I'm saying.
I've been scarred since Tobias Beckett. I mean, let's be real.
Yes, you. Gosh, thank you.
Yeah.
No, and so Matt was like, "Oh, he looks like the real." He was saying the same thing. He looks like the real deal, and I'm like, "I don't trust him." It's just like, but it's like, but he said all the right things, and I'm like, "It's exactly right. He said all the right things,
Yeah.
and he was a little too open and honest about how he felt."
He is,
So,
and that's actually part of what, weirdly enough, that's part of what kind of makes me think he might be genuine, is that I feel like he's being a little too ballsy about it right now because he thinks, I mean, he's still in that stage where he thinks he's just talking shit and nothing's going to come of it. He's
yeah,
just he's upset with the empire and he's going to voice his opinion, and he hasn't really dealt with the aftermath of it. And I think he's seeing other people deal with the aftermath of it for sure. And that's why I do hope he's genuine, is because I want him to come in and Mon to be like, look, it's a lot worse than you even think it is right now. And
yeah,
I don't know. I do like him, and I kind of also attributed his openness with Mon to them just being childhood friends. I mean, it doesn't sound like they were just friends when they were kids and then they stopped. Like, it sounds like they've continued their friendship throughout the years, and they just haven't seen each other in a little while. Although they did, I was gonna say they did straight up say that he hasn't seen her daughter since she was little. However,
yeah.
with his the relationship between Mon and her daughter, that may not necessarily mean that Mon hasn't seen him. It just might mean that her daughter was not around.
Yeah.
I mean, so who knows at this point? I really do want them to get into that relationship with her daughter, because at this point it still feels like everything there is very hearsay on both sides. Like, we haven't really seen their past. We've just kind of seen what they've both mentioned in conversations. So I'm still trying to figure out, like, is Mon Mothma a terrible mother, or does she just have a regular teenager who thinks she's a terrible mother? Like,
That's what I've been trying to figure out too, but I think we'll get more into that. I believe we'll get more into that.
I think we will
So
too. I think my general thoughts of what I think Mon Mothma's story is going to be pointing towards is going to be like pretty much Coruscant this whole season, and I'm expecting her and her daughter to have some sort of moment, whether it's like a goodbye or a like, oh, I'm sorry that we never really connected type moment. But I'm expecting something like that before she really throws herself fully into the rebellion.
yeah, I'm thinking the end of this is going to be her speaking out on the you know what I'm talking about.
It starts with a G, Gorman.
Yeah, the Gorman Accords. She's gonna speak out on that, and that's gonna kind of be the end of the season because like the rest of everything, like we kind of intersperse between Rebels,
Hmm.
and so I feel like her stuff will get with Rebels mostly, but then we'll kind of still have her. I feel like so.
I've been saying, I don't know if I've said it on here or not yet. I probably have, but I've been saying that I hope that if she does kind of like leave the show after, it kind of crosses over with Rebels, I still want a scene of her husband like cleaning out the apartment or something, going full on divorced dad, and like looking at the hollow net and seeing her like basically being like, I'm the leader of the Rebel Alliance, and him being like, oh, how did I not realize this was happening the whole time? Like, I just want him to have that, oh, I've been oblivious and I'm a shithead moment. I need that, because I really do not like her husband.
I don't like him either, but I don't feel like she would fully leave them on Coruscant because it would be too dangerous. They could be used against her. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah,
I
I could totally see her being like sending them on the run or something like that. And then who knows, maybe her daughter gets mad about that and she's like, I had you ruined my life. So
Yep.
never know.
Um, okay. So the last person we have on Coruscant is Deidre, right?
Deidre and Luthen. We
Luthen
did
only had
we
that one
covered
scene.
Luthen. Yeah, I was gonna say we covered Luthen pretty well. The only other thing I was thinking about Luthen was that one scene where it just kind of like lingers on his face. Like, I just wanted to say how, like, I feel like every time they give Luthen a scene by himself, it it draws me in. Like, Stellan is such a very good actor, and I
Yeah.
just give Luthen just, it should be a minimum at this point, like a 30-second scene of Luthen just doing something by himself in a room. That's it. That's all I need.
Yep. Garrick said, I feel like her daughter will sell her out down the line.
I could
I could see that.
absolutely see that. Yeah.
100% could see that. All right. So Deidre.
Deidre. Okay. I hated. I had a very conflicted moment during the big Deidre scene when she's like kind of sparring verbally with her coworker. Like, I wanted her to win, so like she did so good against him. Like, she impressed her boss. She made her
Mhm.
the guy that's trying to sell her out look like a dummy. And I'm sitting here like cheering for her. And I get done, and she's in charge now. And I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, wait a second, these are the bad guys. Like, I'm not supposed to be cheering for these guys. And it was just such a conflicted moment where I got done cheering. I was like, oh wait, no, I don't cheer for them. Stop it. Like, I literally
I
just
could
cheered that
totally
she
feel
found a legal way to actively spy on the entire galaxy, essentially. Like, that's what she did, was she was just like, hey, we don't have to obey civil rights laws. Isn't that great, guys?
that.
And I'm over here like, yeah, get them. Like, it was just it was a very conflicting moment for me.
Shut up, FBI agent in my phone. Just kidding.
We're all good here.
All good, totally good. Uh, so Okay, yeah, I mean, you basically summarized her whole plot point here. So basically, they have a meeting and they're like, we need to get our shit together, do all these things. Here's the act that Palpatine is proposing so that we can have more power and have a little more control over the Navy and security. And so then she goes from there and goes, oh, I have this act. So then she goes to the attendant and says, get me all of this data because of this. And don't tell anybody, send it only to me. Nobody's to know. But then he goes and tells the other guy that is currently in charge of Ferrix.
Called that, by the
And
way. And like as soon
yep,
as she was like, and don't tell anybody. It's like he's gonna tell somebody. It's the Empire. Like, what loyalty does he
yep,
have to you? Like, come on now.
exactly. Um, so they get to the last meeting and the major is like anybody else and goes to talk to the guy who's in charge of Ferrix. I can't remember his name, but I don't care to remember his name because he's just a douchebag.
Blevin.
Blevin. Thank
Yeah, I
you.
had it pulled up because I was reading about him earlier.
um,
He's so cocky.
so he is. He's a douche.
He's a big
Um,
douche. Yeah.
so Blevin goes, oh, well, I have a complaint to make about Supervisor Midro.
My
And I was
favorite
like,
thing about that part was when he says that and their boss is like, "You sure about that right now?" And he's like, "Yeah, I think this is the right place." He's like, "Okay, I mean, if you're sure about
and
this," like he gave him the opportunity to back out.
Deidre has and Deidre looks like she was expecting the critique to come. Like she looks a little caught off guard, but she looks expectant.
Yeah,
And you have to know being a woman in especially a cutthroat business like the Imperial Security Bureau, you go, okay, I have to take this critique in front of everybody.
yep.
Otherwise, nobody's going to take me seriously.
That was when I started rooting for her. Was when he said something like, "Are you prepared to have your character assassinated in front of everybody?" And she's like, "Yeah, go for it." I was just like,
Yeah.
"All right." Anybody that like goes into it feet first like that, I'm like, "Okay, you've got some respect from me." And
Yep.
like Garrick said in the chat, I hate that I was rooting for her, but I was rooting for her very much during that moment.
Yeah. And I mean, she handles it brilliantly. And the major gives her complete credit and is like, you have evidence, you're prepared to present. Okay, you're in charge of Ferrix.
She's like the opposite of Cyril, which is gonna make the two of them like very interesting because Cyril's very much like a I'm gonna follow the rules even when everybody else is breaking them type character, and she's a everybody else is telling me to follow the rules, but I have to break the rules in order to get ahead, and then she's rewarded for it. And like that was something I it was something I was very curious about. I wouldn't call it a complaint really at all, but in the earlier episodes, like she was getting in trouble for going above her station. But like all the if you've read the books about the ISB, that's what they do. Like
Yep.
their whole thing is tracking down every lead, following anybody that they think might have information. And I was like, that doesn't seem very ISB. And so getting to see this episode where they're like, actually, that's how everybody should be doing things. I was like,
Yep.
yes, exactly. Thank you. Because it really did kind of delve into that one little complaint I had.
Yep. And so she gets the Ferrix sector under her supervision, and the major dismisses everyone. Is like, Deidre, I'd like to speak with you. Or he says, walk with me. And so they
Yeah.
start walking, and he goes, well done, watch your back. And
Yes.
I think
Oh,
that's
the
a
watch your
perfect way to
back
put
was
that.
a very okay. That was, I think that's the closest anybody in the Empire will ever get to true, honest recognition of like you
Yep.
did a good job. Was not. I mean, he did say good job, so it's not like he held that from her. But the watch your back. If somebody in the Empire is telling you to watch your back, that's the closest you're going to get to somebody caring about you. I'm just telling you right now.
Yep. Absolutely. And especially after like she criticized like because he made the sector lines and
Hmm.
everything and the original structuring of the empire, and she was like, rebellion don't care about sector lines. And yeah, she's completely right.
She's
um
very right. She was
and
completely
so
right in that whole meeting. Like everything she said was spot on, and that's what I don't know. I'm a sucker for a this character sees what's coming and nobody is listening to them type story,
Yep.
because they're always, I mean, and we know what's to come, so we kind of have an unfair advantage, but those kinds of stories always go to, it's going to snowball and then that person's going to be rubbing it in
Yeah.
everybody's face and I'm just waiting for it. uh
Yeah. So she kicks ass in this episode.
Agree.
I'm now 100% into her character.
Same.
Y'all know me. I've said it previously. I like seeing a strong imperial woman. Those are some of my favorite characters. So
Same. While we're in that Imperial meeting, we didn't bring up, they recasted Wolf Yularen. They did not use CGI.
was that Wolf?
That's
I was
what
trying to figure that out.
I've seen people saying it was, and Wikipedia has it listed as him. Like, it does not say like mentioned; it just says he appeared in the episode.
Huh.
So like, I was wondering who it was when I was watching, and then I saw people talking about it online, so I looked it up afterwards.
Because
But
yeah, he's in here.
yeah,
Um,
supposedly that's who was
he
giving that speech before they actually had their meeting, was Wolfie Lauren.
yeah. Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
And Yolaren, for those just for I had subtitles on and I was looking because I had logged onto Twitter twice and then realized it. And so, but I was Wolf Yularen is somebody who like I liked in Legends and everything.
Hmm.
So that's just somebody like I was like, is that him? And I looked in the subtitles and I don't remember seeing it. But apparently I'm just blind. I mean, I am in glasses instead of contacts. Who knows?
Wolfie Lauren's interesting for me because I watched the first 5 seasons of Clone Wars. It was before they did season 6. I watched the first 5 seasons, not realizing he was one of the people at the Death Star table. Like, I just did not realize that was him. And so I'm like, I got fully invested in him. I liked him as a character. I was like, he's friends with Anakin and Obi-Wan. I like this officer. And then I found out who he was, and I was like, oh, so he goes on to become a bad guy. Okay. Like, it was very, it took the wind
Well,
out of me for a little bit.
and to him, nothing ever changed because he was still serving the Republic and everything. So to
Palpatine.
him, he's still doing all these things.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you kind of already said it, but just for context, Yularen is Anakin's admiral of his starship.
And also
In the
the
Clone Wars.
voiceover of Clone Wars. And
Yes.
I it may not it's probably not supposed to be him, but because it's the same exact voice, in my head, Wolfie Lauren is reading out the Clone Wars intros.
Yeah. I'm trying to look on Wikipedia now because this is gonna bug me.
I
Yeah.
found
So
I
they
found that picture, and it is him. It's like it's on the Wolfie Lauren page now.
Yeah, Imperial Security Bureau, like first picture right there, Colonel Yularen in 5 BBY.
That's awesome.
Um, so
That's a big
I'm all for
character.
it, and I'm glad they recast him instead of CGIing him.
Same.
So
Which
makes it
honestly, I
easier.
I think if they even did CGI him, there would be like 6 people that would be like, "Oh, it's Wolfie Lauren."
Yeah, nobody knows, like, because he's just such a bigger character for like animation, which Lucasfilm has relegated animation to be like, oh, this is the big fans.
Yeah.
So
If you're really a
uh
fan, you'll watch animation.
Yes,
That's how I see
including
it.
Tales of the Jedi, which is next week. And we'll be here at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with the Minot Manor crew
I mean, I'm
to
very
talk
excited.
about everything. It's going to be a long fucking day.
It will be. It's gonna be. I'm gonna have to watch it. I'll probably watch Tales of the Jedi, or at least most of it, on my lunch break that day, just so I can make sure I get through all of it.
For everyone who's curious, reactions did come out this week, and apparently the whole of the 6 episodes totals about 80 minutes.
That's what I heard.
So
I mean,
with
it's a pretty good release.
Andor, yeah, with Andor, you're probably looking at about 2.5 hours, probably is what it's gonna look like. So just for your morning or your afternoon plans, whatever it may be. So, okay. So that covers us with Coruscant.
Mhm.
Okay. So Cassian, the thing we didn't think Cassian would do, Cassian does. He goes to Ferrix.
Yeah, He went to Ferrex. He like I don't know that the scene on Ferrex kind of caught me off guard because I didn't realize he was on Ferrex at first. Like I don't know. He started having the flashbacks, and I thought they were like, "Oh, he's just on a place like Ferrex," and then it's like, "No, he just went back to Ferrex." Okay, but
Yeah.
I'm glad he did because I that scene with Marva, like the two of them talking,
Hmm.
that's the scene I was referring to where like that hit me very hard. So
Yeah.
I like I said earlier, I'm the youngest of eight. I'm a mama's boy. I love my mother, and so like any scenes that have like mother son like bonding, those hit me very hard. And God, that he so when he called her ma, his voice kind of trembled for a second, and it got me so hard. And then I really loved when he was telling her, he's like, "Well, I don't want you to go because then I'm just always going to be worried about you." And she's like, "I think that's just what love is." And I was just like, "Oh my god, that's such a good." Like it was so good. Like you can count on Star Wars, no matter what genre it's trying to be, to have those little heartfelt moments that are going to break your heart. And that was the moment this episode for me.
It really was a good episode to just kind of have a mother-son moment because we've had so much like father-son moments. It
Yeah,
was good to have like the woman's perspective involved. Marva is getting involved in the rebellion. She wants to start a rebellion cell on Ferrix. Um, and that's kind of where they leave off,
she
really.
she was like questioning him. She's like, "Do you hear about what happened on Aldani?" He's like, it was
Uh-huh.
just a robbery." I was like, "Tell her, Cassian. Tell her. She'll be proud of you. Tell her." I was like, "Just
Matt was
say
like,
it."
Matt was like, he's gonna cave. Okay, he's about to tell her. Oh, okay, no.
I
So,
so weirdly, I think the reason he didn't tell her was for kind of selfish reasons, which is I think he realizes that if he tells her, she's gonna like she sees this potential in him. Like it's
yep,
shown that before. She sees potential in him. And right now she's in the mode of take your money, run away, you deserve this, just go, be happy. I'm going to do this though. And I think if she heard him say like, "Well, I was actually involved with what happened out on Aldani," that would be the one thing that sets her over the edge where she's like, "So you see it too. You can't go now. You have to be part of this." And I think he realizes that if he tells her that, she's going to try and drag him into it too.
yep. I thought so too. That if he told her, then she was going to start pestering him to do rebellion-oriented activities, knowing he can't stay on Ferrix. Um, yeah, this is what I was gonna say. Garrick's been like reading my mind all night. He said that last
He's
shot
good
of
at
her
that.
with the blaster seemed pretty ominous to me. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah. I was like, is it like my first thought goes, oh, okay, is she going to kill herself? But then I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense because
No.
like that's typically how you see those people, right? Like
Yeah.
a person leaves and then they pick up a gun and then that's the last you see of them. And it
No.
was like,
That is how they normally portray those, but I read that as not not her. Well, I kind of being suicidal, honestly. If I'm being, I saw that as her being like, "Okay, I'm getting ready to fight." Right after she was just talking about, like I'm old, I'm weary, I can't get around as quickly, and like it going back to that conversation that broke my heart. When Cassian told her, he's like, "What are you gonna do?" He's like, "You're old, like you're tired. What are you gonna do for the rebellion?" And she's like, "Whatever I can."
mhm.
Like she's just told,
And that's
and
all that matters.
it
That
is
is
all
all
that
that matters.
matters. And like I felt that conversation because I've been at that point very recently where I was weary and I was like, what's the point? Why are we fighting for anything? And then you get those people that remind you like you have to fight for things that are important. That's how it works. I mean, you don't get the important things without fighting
Yep.
for them. And it was nice seeing that conversation laid out because there's a lot of times like we've gotten it like with Han Solo before where it's them trying to have that idealistic moment, but like Han, it was always like Han leaves and then he comes back at the last minute and saves the day. Cassian, it's not like that. Like we get to sit with Cassian and see how these conversations he's having with people are affecting his mind and the way he's actually going about his life. And that's why I'm appreciating getting this as a show instead of a movie or a set of movies, I would say, is because it really does feel like we're getting those quiet moments, like when we saw him in the shower and he was like putting his credits up and stuff. I like those little moments that I don't feel like the movies get to have quite as often. Like movies still
Yeah,
have them, but it's like, a dime a dozen. And so
yeah,
I felt like they're doing really well with that.
I think so too. And you kind of talked about the flashbacks, but we get to see Cassian experience the death of his foster father, Clem.
Yeah.
And Clem is actually like okay, we're gonna sit on the sidelines, like they're gonna be gone soon, nobody worry. And people were pestering the um the troopers, and he said, and we kind of hear this was 13 years ago. So you got to think, okay, this was at towards the beginning of the empire.
Yeah, that would have been, if I'm doing my math correctly in my head, that would have been like very soon after Revenge of the Sith.
That would have been because this takes place in 5 BBY, and Marva talks about
Hmm.
how for 13 years she hasn't been able to walk through that square. So that would have been like
Yeah.
18 BBY, so very early. But that also, I know Taylor from Geekverse had kind of brought this up that we were going to get Clone Wars flashbacks. And technically, we did get Clone Wars flashbacks because Cassian was younger at that point, and
Hmm.
the they increased his age
Yeah.
for Rogue One. But these shots right here are where we get the clone trooper helmets.
I appreciated the way that they showed those flashbacks too, where it was like switching between the young actor for Cassian and Diego.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
because that was when I was like, oh, these are flashbacks. Because for a minute I thought he was just kind of like remembering, but like we weren't seeing the remembrance. And then I don't know, it was kind of trippy the first time watching it, like the way they jumped around between it. But I like the way that I thought it was very cool from like a cinematic perspective. Like it
Yeah.
really made me feel him dwelling on that thought. Like it like you said with what Marva said, like she avoided walking through that square for 13 years, and you feel that with Cassie, and like you feel why they avoid walking through that square. And like it took a moment that could have been very, cliche within Star Wars of, rebel parents get killed by the Empire. I mean, it's what happened with Luke, like that was
Yeah.
Emperor and Uncle Owen, and they made it feel sad. Like that's, I can't really think of a better way to put it. Like it felt sad as you were going through it. Like you felt the grief.
It did, especially considering like he was trying to protect the kids and the younger people, I guess,
Yeah,
that were booing the Empire, the troopers marching through Ferrix. And he was trying to stop them from actually throwing things at the troopers, and yet he's the one who gets shot down because all they see was that a person in the streets. And I think it's a commentary that the fact that Clem is black.
yeah,
Um,
I agree.
and so you get that, and yeah, it did make me tear up for a second. So but that's kind of Cassian with Marva. Marva refuses to go off world with him. And the last kind of bit that we get on Ferrix, and this is between his conversations with Marva, because he has two conversations with Marva. We kind of summarize them into one.
Yeah,
But he goes and meets with Bix, and Bix is not happy with him. She's clearly beat up. Like the Empire is still trying to figure out if she can tell them where Cassian is. Um, but also like because she was so close with Cassian, maybe it's also the townspeople beating her up because she specifically says everybody in town blames you for what happened.
see, I was wondering if it was still just her being injured from hitting her head on, like when they like slammed her into the wall right before they shot her boyfriend. I can't remember his name.
Tim,
Tim.
the
I
makeup,
should be able to remember that.
the makeup looked too
Fresh.
fresh
I
because
I'll, I
it's only
wasn't
been
quite sure.
it hasn't been long, but we know the mission on Aldani was it was like 3 days.
Yeah.
So I feel like it wouldn't look as bad because it's probably about 5 days is what I'm thinking it is.
I mean, that's what I would think too. I was just wondering because she specifically said like I ran into a wall, which is what they did to her. Like they shoved her into the wall. So that was what I was thinking it was. But I could absolutely see it as like the Empire keeps coming back, especially with So you mentioned her and Cassian being close. We found out in this episode they are exes. They're not just close; they are former
Which is what
romantic.
we had assumed.
We had assumed, but it's nice to get some confirmation in there.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
And so he he kind of offers to like let her come with him,
hmm
and she declines, but he leaves her with 12,000 credits, which is what he owes everyone in Ferrix.
I thought that I was
So,
like I wanted to pat him on the back. Like I hate having debt. Like
uh-huh.
if I owe somebody money, I'm gonna pay it back as quickly as I can. Like that's it, the first time I have money to spend on anything, I'm gonna spend it on whatever that debt is. And so when he paid it back and he's like, all right, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, I owe them all something. Split it up. They all should get something. I was like, good job, Cassie. You're not just cutting out. Like you remembered that you owe people money. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely wanted to give him a quick pat on the back for that.
So the yeah, exactly. So the next part that we see Cassian at, he is on a planet named Nimia?
This was my favorite part of the episode. I'm calling it right now. The like weird cyberpunkish sci-fi space resort.
Yeah,
Like I
the
loved that
beach
so
town. Yeah.
much. And that's where we got all the aliens and like they were sitting on bleachers that made me think like of like the SeaWorld whale shows. I don't know, like that whole resort, like I just dug the vibe of it. Like that it felt like something that like a place that if I got to write a Star Wars that was kind of non-consequential, that's the kind of location I would want some of it to be set in. It's something like that. So I'm probably gonna go back and rewatch just that scene a couple times.
Yeah, I think so too. Because I do want to get in another watch of this episode.
Mhm.
Um, but he's found a girl already. His name on this planet is Keith. Um,
He has one of the best names too. I actually, so I pulled this up specifically. I pulled up an article from Polygon specifically talking about his cover name because it's got one of the best, Keith Gergo. Like I love that name. That's so good.
it was a great name. And he kind of tells his girlfriend, I guess, because they act like they've been kind of in the same room for a
Yeah,
couple days.
they know each other's interests at this point. So I mean, they it doesn't sound like they just met. Like she was speaking to him like he should know what snack she wanted. So
Yeah. So and this is the shower scene that we get where he's not naked, but he's got
no,
the shower running so he can do an inspection on his credits and stuff. And he goes for a walk and he sees people running and he decides to keep walking. And Matt and me internally, we were both like, dude, just like sit down, like don't draw attention to yourself, like you're just moving your seat.
yeah.
Nothing to see here. And and so he gets to the point where he's like, oh, getting to the shop, and then a stormtrooper pulls him over and it's like, you've been looking at things real strangely.
That
What did you
whole
think?
like I'm not sure if that moment was supposed to be funny. It had me laughing and like it felt
It
like it was
did.
supposed to be like tense. It felt like you were supposed
Yeah.
to be like scared, but I was giggling cuz he's like, "What are you laughing about?" Or he's like, "What where are you going?" Huh? I don't know, like just the way that that trooper was talking, it did not feel it kind of felt like National Lampoonish to me almost.
Yeah. Where it's like, oh, is he like pulling your tail or something? Like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, move along.
yeah, exactly. Like it could have easily just been him like joking with Cassian, but then as soon as we saw the droid, I was like, oh nope, he's serious.
I was like, wait, they said they weren't gonna bring in K2SO. And like I knew, like, I know that he's from a droid line and they all look the same because
Yeah,
it's the Empire, but I was like, they said they weren't gonna bring in K2SO yet. Wait, huh? What? And then he speaks and I'm like, oh yeah, that's not K2SO.
my favorite part of that was that the way that they frame him coming into the shot, they know exactly what we are thinking. They know every
Yeah.
single one of us is like, this is K2, because we see him kind of slowly walk up like Baywatch style almost, and then he
Yep.
just comes over that horizon and oh, he's holding two bodies. No, this is not K2. He's holding two people in his hands. I was like, that whole moment, like I went from being like, oh, to just giggling because I knew immediately that meant it was not K2.
Well, and like it could have been K2SO.
Oh, it could have, yeah.
Because we know K2 was an Imperial droid, but like you go in and you're like expecting the voice,
Hmm.
and so you have to wait for the voice to happen, but then it's not it's not Alan
Yeah.
Tudyk.
Yeah, it
So
was definitely not Alan Tudyk. No. No, well, and like there was a moment where that droid is like next to Cassian and another one like walks behind them where I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not K2." Like that was kind of the moment where I don't know, just something about that whole like him coming over the horizon holding the bodies had me being like, "Oh, so I see what they're doing. They're going for a comedic take on this."
yeah,
Uh, that whole stop interaction thing reminded me of the small town cops in my hometown where they're just like stopping you just to see what you're doing. You're like, I'm just walking to the grocery store, guy.
yeah, exactly. Everyone was like, "Oh, so stormtroopers are just the Miami cop in shorts."
Yes, I saw
Um,
that. That's so accurate. Uh,
so he gets arrested, and the very last scene, well, not the very last scene, the second to last scene we kind of get with him is the judgment scene. And he goes, "Well, I'm just a tourist. I'm just a tourist." And the judge is like, well, don't say anything because you'll just get another charge added. And
yeah,
she's like, "A pity this used to be only a 6 month charge, 6 years." And he's like,
like
"I
I
did
well,
nothing." And
and
literally, he did nothing. He just
what
kind of stood there and like talked to the stormtrooper.
what cracked me up about that, like this is really there was so much about that whole like from him meeting the stormtroopers through the judgment scene where it's like this should horrify me, but it's making me laugh. And another part of that was when they were reading off his crimes. Like they were like,
Yep.
again, violence against the empire. The last one they said was attempt to flee, and I was like, he literally stood there saying, "I'm just standing here. I'm not running away," and they put attempting to flee on his crimes. Like it was another thing where I'm like, that should horrify me, but I'm just giggling at it because of how ridiculous it is.
Yep. So then we see him thrown in jail,
Yeah,
and that is all we see. But obviously, we know he doesn't stay in jail for 6 years.
no.
Um,
My
so
biggest fear right now is that he's gonna get out of jail and get back to his hotel room and find that girl found all his credits. Just
yep.
poor
And
Cassian.
poor Castian, exactly. He gets money only to lose it.
Yep.
Uh, so all right. So thoughts on this episode?
I loved it. Honestly, um it's a contender for one of my favorite episodes. I'm not sure if it's my all-time favorite, but I do think that that whole resort scene is one of my favorite scenes in the whole show. And then, like I said before, I don't feel like there was a weak performance from anybody in this episode. I felt like
Yeah.
everybody was on their A games in this episode. So I would probably give this a solid 4.2, 4.3. Um, like it had a couple slow moments, but for the most part, like the big moments felt huge to me. Like it felt like there were moments in this episode that are gonna be playing out throughout the rest of the season.
I think so as well. It's a very tension-filled episode that serves well. It serves the show well to head into the last half of the season.
Hmm.
Um, and it's got a lot that will have to be played out. I mean, obviously, Belle's got to come find uh Cassian and convince him to join the rebellion because that's probably what's going to happen.
Speaking of
Um,
Vel, I just realized we never talked about Cinta.
yeah, we do see Cinta. She is
I want to know what she's
finding
doing.
a yeah, because she and it's the shot from the trailer that we get, that we had mentioned last week. But she has a really old speeder bike,
Hmm.
that she's uncovered, and she sees the destroyer over her head, like coming into Aldani. So
They said
yeah,
she was doing something specific, like when Vel and Clea were talking, said like she's doing her job. So like
yeah,
it feels like they have more in store for her. So I'm excited about that because I really thought going into this it was gonna be like when we got into episode 4, where like all of Cassian's friends from Ferrex were just not in the last 3
yeah,
episodes. And I thought that's how these next 3 were gonna go. So getting not only a check-in back with the Ferrex people, but also with the surviving members of the Aldani crew. I really enjoyed that. I was not expecting that at all, so it was a pleasant surprise for me.
yeah. I am about the same, probably in ranking wise. Again, really enjoyed this episode. I can't remember if I said I was the same in the ranking or not, so I'm just gonna reiterate it. Um, so yeah, I really enjoyed it. Um, I can't wait for next week.
Me either.
So
Yeah, I'm that episode definitely got me energized for more episodes.
same here, same here. All right, Zach, where can they find you?
They can find me at Twitter at Flying Grace Sun.
And y'all, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. It's at Place of Katie. This show you can find on Twitter and Instagram. Well, I haven't logged in the Instagram yet on my new phone. I need to do that, but you can find it on Twitter. That's Star Wars Lights Out the End. The War is very important. Don't forget it. I know I need to tweet out last week's episode still, so I will be tweeting that both of those out. Uh, last week's episode and this week's episode tomorrow. You'll have to excuse me. Last week was my birthday, so I just kind of took the day off and did what
You're
I wanted.
forgiven.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Um, so my other show on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Podcast Network, y'all, is on Twitter as well. It's at Slice of Film 1. Mark and I just covered Hocus Pocus 2. We're still trying to figure out what movie is going to be for next week. So um we may just celebrate House of the Dragon and let that be the spectacle. I don't know. But to end us off for October, we will be talking about Edward Scissorhands. So
Good
that
one.
will be super fun because I've never seen that one before. Uh,
Really?
yes.
I'm
There's a lot
interested
of
to know
movies.
your opinions because I watched it at a very young age, so I feel like I'm probably biased by nostalgia. Um, so
Yeah.
definitely let me know how you feel about it.
I've gotten that a lot with people where I'm like, oh, well, I watched this one when I was really young, so maybe that's why. But because like I hate Ghostbusters.
Okay, I won't judge. I won't judge. Sorry, I'm a big Ghostbuster fan.
Shameless plug. You can go listen to the podcast review I did for it. So, anyways, um, with that, y'all, make sure you are here next week for our big 100th episode celebration. Again, we got guys from Minot Manor coming in. I look forward. Make sure once you watch Tales of the Jedi, if you watch any of it, make sure you share your opinion because I would love to share it. And if you have any thoughts on how the show has gone over the past 100 episodes, would love to hear from you. Again, so come back here, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next week on Wednesday to join the fun. With that, I want to wish everyone a great day or night, whatever time of day you are listening or watching, and we will see y'all next time. May the force be with you.
Bye, everybody.